So Andor is a Star Wars series that hasn't been massively popular in the streaming numbers, but it's been one of the less negatively received Disney Star Wars projects in recent years, in the grand scheme of things, up until this point, when the first 3 episodes of its second season premiered last week, and there was a grape scene featured in the show. Something that has never been shown in Star Wars before, and probably never should have been. It is now being addressed by the show creator. His name is Tony Gilroy.
Gilroy.
And he wrote these scenes. This was important to him to include this because it's about reflecting the real world in the world of Star Wars. And also helping the universe of Star Wars mature with its audience. Implying, I guess, that all the previous Star Wars movies and the original trilogy were, like, childish, which doesn't really make sense to me.
No.
But, here, let's get into it. The Hollywood Reporter interviewed Tony Gilroy about this. Here is the scene. It's, an Imperial officer tries to violently grape a rebel fugitive, Bix Caleen, who is hiding out in a farming settlement while Imperial troops are rounding up undocumented citizens. Okay, so it's not just that we're hitting on the issue of sexual violence, we're also hitting on the issue of undocumented migrants. The sequence plays out over the course of the show's 3rd episode.
And remember, this isn't, as they point out, it's not an actual, it's a failed attempt.
Right, this is, to be clear, an attempt, not
correct.
You actually seeing it go down. It starts with the officer's flirtation with Bix Caleen turning increasingly persistent and eventually culminating with a brutal life and death struggle. Bix eventually gets the upper hand and the officer is killed, but Andor boldly leaves zero ambiguity as to what viewers just witnessed as Bix screams, "He tried to rape me!"
There's a 20 there.
Let me see.
From
Puchu Sona. Need Tate to lead a pod. His input is always the peak of the episodes.
I think I saw him typing under the table. I think he might have sent that to us.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, what's this?
That's my street name.
The propaganda.
No, tweet at Tim. Just tweet Tim nonstop.
Like, we need Tate to lead a show.
So true.
The Star Wars, they say that Star Wars is a franchise that has never shown even consensual sex. During its first season, Andor pushed the envelope with scenes that suggested sex was about to take place or just had, much like old Hollywood films during the Hays Code censorship era. When asked about the Bix scene, Andor creator Tony Gilroy explained that when telling a story about war, shying away from sexual assault didn't feel truthful. Here's what he said. I get one shot to tell everything I know or can discover that I've learned about revolution, about battles, with as many incidents and many colors as I can get in there without having the story tip over. Let's be honest, man. The history of civilization, there's a huge arterial component of it that's rape. All of us who are here, we're all a product of rape. I mean, armies and power throughout history have committed rape, so to not touch on it in some way, it just was organic and it felt right coming about as a power trip for this guy. I was really trying to make a path for Bix that would ultimately lead to clarity, but a difficult path to get back to clarity.
Here's the thing. The point he's making is accurate about the history of the world and conquering and armies, invading armies. That stuff, accurate, sure. But the funny part about it is like, I can just imagine that this interviewer's eyes lit up when he started saying this because they knew they were going to clip this out.
Yeah.
And there is such a thing as too much truth in an interview for something like this, meaning that what's going to happen is that the headlines will take you out of context, and whether it belongs in Star Wars or not, that's for the Star Wars historians and the people who truly love the property. I find it more interesting that he said this, likely knowing, given that he's been in Hollywood for a while, that this was going to become a topic of great discussion. But headlines aren't a place for nuance. Headlines are a place to ram you over the head with what they're trying to say.
I guess his point was like, we're all technically descended from rapists in some regard, which is technically true.
Again, I don't want to like.
That doesn't mean we need it in Star Wars.
Right.
Is this the time to like introduce that discussion? Unless you're in a room and you got like 3 hours to kill and you're with people who want to talk about history.
I mean, I've heard a homeless guy make a similar point before, and it's pretty horrifying. So yeah, interview not the place.
He also made it clear in the interview with The Hollywood Reporter that Disney did not push back at all on his idea to include this, even though there are strict guidelines in Star Wars for violence and sexual material.
Yeah.
This didn't cross those boundaries, I guess.
It's because Shannon Sharp wasn't playing the.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I was just relieved to see Jar Jar wasn't involved. 'cause
Okay, so that's
worrying.
the other thing that people were bringing up was Slave Leia and Jabba the Hutt, and
Yeah.
they were trying to correlate these two as the same thing, which is not the same thing.
Right. No. Well, there was not even really the implication that Leia was raped. She was just imprisoned and put in a scantily clad outfit.
If I'm being honest here, like given the fact that I don't really care about Star Wars, like this doesn't bother me, but I do understand that one of the things that's been pushed in recent years is to take a property that's done pretty good with the good and evil idea and turn it into shades of gray, which kind of destroys the joy of Star Wars, the psychological certainty of good and evil, and start telling supposedly more complex stories. But as me and you have talked 100 times, it's not necessarily about making it complex. It's about making it morally ambiguous.
I think that what takes the joy out of it is really the impulse to make a fantasy world look like the real world.
Yeah.
Like, why does the Star Wars world need to look like Ukraine? I don't know. Like, why does it need to reflect what a real war zone looks like or anything like that? But I saw that it was mostly negative feedback, understandably, from fans.
Well,
but I
it
wanted
does-
to read like the positive response of people who are praising this because it's just so insane. Andor dared to go to the darkest places Star Wars could offer. An Imperial officer abusing his untouchable status to rape an undocumented migrant while his troops are rounding up other undocumented citizens. This is the real world seeping into Star Wars storytelling. This is the world we live in, reflected in the galaxy far, far away.
Nobody wants
is-
the world we live in reflected in a galaxy far, far away.
They're saying
Nobody but
this
you.
is a good thing. They're saying this is a good thing.
I know
this
they
is
are.
Star Wars at its most political, its most potent, its most frightening. I must commend the writing team's bravery to not shy away from such topics, to depict fascist regimes as they are. Speak the word rape directly into the camera.
Okay, shut the
Show
fuck up.
just how despicable fascists really are. Andor is as brilliant as it is terrifying.
This is actually what's worse is they're not even being honest. This is actually just a trope in Hollywood. The trope of all bad guys are rapists. It's literally a meme from Honest Trailer or from Everything Wrong With the video series. It's like if you really, really want to make a guy look bad, you don't just make him a kidnapper. You don't just make him a murderer. You have to make him a rapist because that's how you take away any hope of somebody being redeemed, right? So worse than being political is being boring.
That's how you make people hate Biff in Back to the Future. Because
Yeah.
otherwise I would have thought Biff was the cool one.
Yeah.
This other tweet said, an extremely difficult scene to watch, but one that deepens the villainy of the Empire and has a disturbing relevance to a real, serious world issue. The team deserves praise for their bravery in including such a difficult topic in a big franchise like Star Wars.
I like how that person's like, this is where the Empire drew the line. They literally blew up a planet. That's as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
And they're like, finally, someone showing the evil of the Empire.
I
It's
don't
like,
think that Darth Vader would approve of this.
That's what Star Wars Theory said. Star Wars Theory made that exact point. He said, "SA in Star Wars feels unnecessary. You can portray power dynamics and making the audience hate the Empire in other ways without taking it to such a disgusting place. Vader wouldn't tolerate that shit, nor does the Empire condone it. It has no place in Star Wars. Period. Unnecessary."
So true.
I
The
don't
same
know.
showrunner also said that he included references to the Nazi Third Reich in the premiere episode of this season. I won't even get into his explanation of why he did that. It doesn't matter. but he felt like it was important to intertwine Star Wars with his knowledge of world history.
And we'll give him credit for this, which is that people from season 1 really, really liked his take on Star Wars, but they said it's the least like Star Wars out of anything that's been made, which tells me that they just happen to be Star Wars fans reacting to good television, not Star Wars fans reacting to good Star Wars necessarily. That out of all the new things that Disney has made, this is the most successful amongst like actual old school Star Wars fans, but not necessarily successful on the grand sense because the ratings weren't super good.
They're trying to make Star Wars
Yeah.
into prestige TV, and
And-
it's like not landing once the showrunner kind of gets a big ego about
I don't
it.
I don't know if that's what it is, or if it's that, like, look, he took his art one place in season 1, and in season 2 he went here, and it just so happens that this happens to be where the line is for some people, and for others it's not. But I don't think it actually ends up mattering because it's not doing well ratings wise anyways. The people that like it are going to continue to like it. The people that don't like this scene will likely continue watching to see if it gets worse. And sans any more incidents, it will
Yeah.
continue to have its mediocre ratings.
This feels like ancient history now, but I remember when we reviewed the first season of Kenobi on this channel.
Like a lifetime ago.
Was that 2022?
Yeah.
Yeah, a long time ago. And everyone hated it, predictably so. And they have just interviewed the girl who plays young Leia in the show, who is now 12 years old. She says that we need to make Star Wars less male-centric.
12-year-olds don't say things like male-centric.
When I heard that,
Ever.
I'm not even trying to bully like this 12-year-old for her
No,
opinion.
you have to bully your parents.
I think her parents need to be bullied because they're clearly brainwashing her, and they should not be allowing her to speak like this publicly. But she said this in an interview with Collider recently about the possibility of playing Leia as a teenager. I've said it in a few interviews, and I've had some people be like, no, we don't need it. Yes, we do. We need less male-centric Star Wars. We need more women because we need a strong female Star Wars universe. I love that, so I think it could be really fun. I really enjoyed how they did Skeleton Crew of like a Goonies, Stranger Things-esque show for teens centered around Star Wars. And something she's saying with Leia, something almost like the summer I turned pretty. Oh, this poor girl. I think it would be difficult to execute the proper writing, but it could be really fun to do something like that and bring in more of that type of audience.
And
teenage girls.
The problem is that as Chris Gore and the dudes over at Film Threat have said, there's been no more costly business decision than trying to take a male brand like Star Wars and make it a female brand. I'm just waiting for the day. The
She's
meme
waiting
is,
for
the
Star
meme
Wars,
is
the
always,
kissing booth.
The meme is always like, dudes, if dudes want to beat this, what they need to start doing is they need to be like, I've always wanted to make a Hallmark movie, and then put like big titty women and lasers in Hallmark movies and be like, it's been my dream since I was a kid to make a Hallmark movie, and then you just make it as male as possible.
Yeah.
But that's not going to
Would
happen.
be the ultimate revenge. We have a 20 from Pop Culture Junkie. I'm a fan of Star Wars and Gilroy's work, the Bourne movies, Star Wars Rogue One, and given what I've read, I'm going to wait to pass judgment on Andor until the final episode. That's fair.
Yep.
Don't let the rage bait work on you.
Do you think there's an element here where it's millennials that are trying to justify being into movie or media that's for children? And they're like, well, let's mature it up so we can justify watching children's shows.
No, because the argument then that they always make when you take it too seriously is they say this is for kids. And then no, I don't believe that.
Okay, but like Star Wars was never like seen as being for kids, right? It was kind of just for all ages.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Am I
it's
wrong?
like they sell the toys and their main audience
lot of
for
it is-
50 years was children.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen it since I was 12.
Like the dinks who are going to
Nothing is really like
to like
outside
Disney
of
parks and like playing with lightsabers, they're like engaging in some kind of arrested development there.
and like the prequels were clearly targeted to children.
Yeah, for sure.
outside of like animated movies, and I'm not talking like the Inside Outs, which have themes that are for adults as well. Like most things today aren't really made for kids. They're made for like permanent kids, for adults that are permanently children. And that's
Yeah.
look, that's not even to the discredit of those people. It's to say that the media is trying to find this magic formula on what to make for people, as people are in a state of arrested development. But Andor was never made for kids.
Well, I guess I'm just seeing it because it's a Disney show, and you always see with the Disney stars, they're like trying to prove that they're adults now, and I'm wondering if this is the manifestation in the movies and media now.
That's like Disney Channel stuff. That's a completely different thing. Like, this is a brand unto itself, like Marvel, like Pixar.
Yeah.
So it's not really the same thing.
I don't know.
No.
They had this. I think that Disney executives had this notion that they would like make Star Wars more like highfalutin and more like artsy and pretentious than it ever was, because it was for mass appeal before. There's nothing wrong with that.
That might be the better question here, is like, what happened to mass appeal? Like, somehow while trying to make a story for everyone, they no longer capable of doing that.
And they're like siloing these different audiences where like one of the shows has Lizzo in it and one of them has rape in it, and like I don't know what to think anymore. Like, what tone are we trying to strike?
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.